All right, welcome back, Be Better Tribe. This is your host, Julian Alvarez. The podcast is meant to explore stories, lessons, and leadership journeys that shape who we become. And one of the things that I've appreciated more and more as I've gotten older is how rare it is where people are in your life for your entire story. Not just bits and pieces, but like literally the whole thing. And what's even crazier is people that are in your life that aren't your family, kind of your chosen family per se. And so this individual and I actually met when we were 6 years old, and we grew up in Santa Cruz together, and that's Peter Balla. Peter and I met during a crazy time. We were 6 years old and playing under eight soccer, and our families went to a tournament together. There was four of us, Daniel, Zach, Peter, and myself. Those three were playing on the same team, and then I was kind of like the guest player on this 3-on-3. We traveled over to Colorado after we won a local tournament. We actually ended up winning the tournament, which was actually a cool story for us to tell. But from that moment, we became really close as friends. And although we went to different schools, we went to different elementaries, we did go to school together for 1 year. That was in junior high in 8th grade. And then we went to different high schools. So throughout that time, we were, although we were in different schools, we were playing sports alongside each other. And we really grew up together, which was really fun. But we grew up riding bikes. We grew up with a lot of freedom. We grew up being outside a lot. And we grew up playing a lot of sports. And through that sports, I feel like it really helped us develop a lot of discipline. But then also the combination of being free and going to the beach solo and riding our bikes all over Santa Cruz, it gave us a sense of responsibility for each other. And so that was a really important time in my life. And I'm grateful to have a friend like Peter for 30 plus years. It was close to 35, which is crazy. But what's really inspiring to me is I've watched Peter approach school, athletics, and his career with a level of consistency that really stood out for me. He went on to earn his master's in architectural engineering at Cal Poly and has helped build amazing things like LAFC Stadium, Harry Potter, Mario World, and tons of things down in LA, which is really cool to see. But for me as a friend, it's always been really amazing to grow up alongside somebody that's so disciplined, that is such a high achiever, and then it's really fun to be around. And so I just love that I'm able to connect with a type of person like him. And so whether it's friendships that have lost proximity, and so like they're far away from you, or people that have just been in your life for a really long period of time, I'm really excited to kind of ask Peter some of these questions that I've never asked them, and some of the conversations that him and I have had over the years. And hopefully after this, those lessons and learns will be shared with all of you. And again, I'm inspired by Peter. He's such an amazing person that I can't wait to welcome him onto the Be Better Tribe podcast. But before we do that, remember you can reach the Be Better Tribe podcast through our phone number, 831-471-7888, or you can visit our website, bebettertribe.com. You can go ahead and buy any of the gear that you want. Reminder, I have some crew neck sweatshirts. There is a journal on there. And then there is the habit tracker planner that you can go ahead and buy, and I'll get those shipped out later this week. So feel free to do that. But once again, without further ado, let me go ahead and welcome Peter Balla onto the Be Better Tribe podcast. All right, welcome in Peter Balla to the Be Better Tribe podcast. And it's so funny, Peter, you and I have been friends for, over 30 years, which is really unknown. Man, we're almost 40 now, which is crazy to think about. We've been friends for over 30 years. We did win a national championship when we were under 6, which is crazy.
So you say over 30 years, but if we're almost 40, it's technically 34 years.
Yeah, it's 34 years. But we met earlier on in the soccer field. We became friends. Our family got really close. And then we just grew up together, man, where we've seen the highs, we've seen the lows. And, looking back on a friend like you, Peter, there's a couple things that I don't think we talk about enough is like, one, this respect that I have for you and everything that you've accomplished, whether it's like how you've done it in sports when back in the day in high school, the work ethic that you had, the captain, the leadership, the college major that you went into, the father, the husband, everything that you've done, man. It's not only that we've been friends for that long, but I do respect you as a person. And I'm just excited to actually talk to you and ask you some questions that I've never asked you, which is exciting for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, man. It's
Yeah.
you make me sound like I'm more important than I am.
You know, Peter, like you're really obviously, you're really important to me, but like I do think, you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot of really cool challenges, and I just want to get to know a little
Yeah.
bit more about how you've dealt with that. So first thing is you and I grew up in Santa Cruz. We are both parents. I'm a parent of two boys, going to be a third on the way. You have a boy and a girl. And the way I reflect back to our Santa Cruz childhood is we had such a strong group of friends. We had a long, strong group of friends within sports. But really, outside of our sports, we had families that gave us freedom. Like you and I were able to go to school. We were able to walk home. We were able to get on bikes. We were able to do things as a young kid. And it was a really special place for us. And so, in your opinion, what created that environment for us as a kids for it to allow us to grow up?
I mean, I think there's a number of factors. I
Yeah.
think at that time when we were growing up in Santa Cruz was kind of like I almost want to feel like it's its peak, right?
Yeah.
It was, it wasn't maybe as dangerous as it is now, or, maybe it's just a perception that it is. So, being able, it had that sort of cul-de-sac feel, like we
Yeah.
could go down, even when we were like riding bikes from friend's house to friend's house, it didn't feel like we were ever in an area that was dangerous,
Hmm.
right? So part of that, I always think back to that when I'm raising my kids now, and I'm like, man, how do I recreate that? I live in LA, I live in, the South Bay, but thinking of my daughter like walking to the corner store, I'm like, no, she's got to be like 18 to be able to do that, and for us it was like at 10 years old I was walking to school by myself, you
Totally.
know. So I think I think part of it is society and where that's kind of changed. I think as a whole, I think that as a generation, we probably had the same freedom that a lot of people our age did, and a lot of kids that now don't.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there was also a trust with our parents, and I think about this a lot with when it came to sports. I think sports did a lot of stuff for us.
Mhm.
It gave us a reason to not do dumb things.
We did dumb
Like
things. We did do dumb things, but we were disciplined though. I feel like it.
yeah, I think I think back to the kids that like smoked weed very early on, like as soon as it got to junior high, and they fell out of sports. They didn't do it, and what did they have to do? They didn't have anything to like basically hold them to like a standard of wanting
Yeah.
to be better at something. And so it's like funny, people are like, "Oh, you grew up in Santa Cruz, you must have smoked weed." I'm like, I didn't smoke weed till I was out of high school because the people that I saw that did it, like their lives were ruined, you know? And so I
Yeah.
think sports kind of made us disciplined in that way from like hey, there's something that I enjoy doing. I don't want to mess that up. I mean, I was so fearful of not messing that up because I enjoyed so much of that. We had a group of friends that were very successful in sports in our area, and so I don't think any of us wanted that to. Now, were we probably friends because we all played sports? Yes. So it was kind of this like self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like, oh, all of our friends were really good at sports. Like, well, because we are all good at sports, so therefore we were on the good team sports, which means that's when you develop that friendship, right? So it kind of, I think for us, it kind of did both at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like you hit a couple different things. Like we had the freedom, we had the space, we had the community to allow us to kind of have that freedom to grow up. But then we also had the bonds and the friendships and the push from our sports. And whether it was me playing soccer, you were playing baseball, soccer, football, Austin, other people like Eric, like all the crew, we were all playing a sport at a pretty high level.
Mhm.
And we would keep each other, I feel like, accountable to that. And we had like something to strive for. But I think you're right. Like our bonds got tighter because we were connected to wanting to get better, right? Like I feel like we had something to do, but we were still having fun, which is a great environment to be.
I think what
Um,
was, I do want to touch on something that was actually even more unique. I think the fact that, you said it's unique that we've been friends for this long. If you didn't ask me before, I know you were texting me earlier. It's such a unique thing to have this friendship. What was I think even more unique about it is we all went to different high schools, right?
yeah.
Like we maintained this very close relationship at literally rival high schools, right?
Hmm.
And we would go intermix between, I'd go to Santa Cruz parties, you go to Harbor parties, and like we would be defending of each other rather than the people at our own school. And so it was like this even more unique thing that we had that just kind of solidified that bond even more. That fact that like, hey, we kept this friendship through not being at the same school. So it almost like made it easier to be friends for longer because you've always had some sort of distance and you've always had to kind of think about what that meant for your friendship when there was sort of that driving that factor that kind of pulled you away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like, like after like thinking about and reflecting back, that one quote or that one saying of like you are um you like you comprise yourself or you become the five closest people around you, you know what I mean? And like
Right,
I feel
right,
like you put up a good the people that we were around at school were different than people that we might have connected with deeper at different schools, but we just created that strong bond because I think whether in what's funny is we didn't play the same sports either.
right, right.
Like a lot of us didn't play the same sports. We weren't on the same teams, but on Friday night we were texting, we were calling each other, we were going to hang out. Like, hey, we're going to go here, we're going to go there, and we always had that. And I think it was just the bond that we all had, and I do truly believe we underlying knew that we were all driving for something bigger, and we could help each other get there by just
Right.
you would call me out, our friends would call us each other out, we would help each other if one of us were going through a tough time, and
Yeah,
we were just going to move through life together, which was really exciting and really 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 fundamental. And luckily for me, like going to UC Santa Cruz where I didn't have any of my friends, and then I got the transfer to Cal Poly, which where you were, and you had an
yeah,
amazing house and I was able to move into, and I didn't have soccer buddies, and that was fundamental for me. That was kind of like going back to going from Holy Cross to B40 and then going from UC Santa Cruz to Cal Poly, like I had two big transitional moments in my
yeah,
life where
yeah, yeah,
there, and thinking back, like that changed the trajectory of my life because I pushed myself to be better and I connected with people that were going to help me grow as an individual. And so, man, thinking back, like it is centered around like, being close to people like you who are going to push me. And like, that's where I wanted to ask you. The next
yeah,
question, Peter, is I went to Cal Poly clearly to play soccer. Like I
yeah.
went not for academics. I went to play soccer, and you went for academics. You chose architectural engineering at Cal Poly. This major, this course, this path for you was going to be one of the hardest paths for anyone joining, like in college. So, first question is, why did you choose that, and what made you want to push yourself to that level?
You know, it's funny. I never really actually thought of it as this like very challenging thing. Um, in the sense that like I wanted the challenge of doing it. I was actually just it came more from, hey, I was really good at math and
Mhm.
physics, and I really wanted to do something like building, and it was just like a perfect blend for me of both of those things that it sort of had this it paired like both sides of my brains. Like
Yeah.
in high school, I actually did a lot of art classes. Like I did like 2 years of art, and so I had that sort of like design, thing that was inside of me that I really wanted to
Huh.
explore.
Yeah.
But I also was really good at engineering. So it to me it kind of blended both of those things together. Um, and to sort of become almost a superpower in together in that sense. And
Huh.
so I never really thought of it as like, oh my God, Cal Poly is so hard. It's like, man, there's this architectural engineering classes. There's literally like three programs that are literally called architectural engineering. And it was so important for me to like really be able to explore both sides of myself in that way,
Yeah.
and not feel like I had to compromise in any way, right?
That.
And even in getting there, what was really cool about it is like I was doing engineering class, but I was taking like 2 years of architecture classes, like drawing, like presentations, like doing modeling, like so it was really cool in that sense. And that's why like a regular civil engineering thing just didn't quite do it for me because it never really had that sort of artistic side that I was really yearning for.
That's a cool reflection back on like you found a niche that really was able to like scratch that creative plus engineering mind that you had. And
Yeah.
actually go deep though. Like you were in like the lab a shit ton, man. Like
Yeah.
I respect you so much because like man, I would see you. You'd be in school all day, then you'd come home, eat dinner, and then you'd go back to the lab. So like a kid going through it right now, or a college kid going through like the amount of level of effort. You know, my effort was running early in the morning, which is just like a
Mhm.
physical. Yours is mental and physical. Like, what advice would you give someone in that point, or what advice would you have given yourself grinding it out in that sense back then? Like, is there any advice you would give to your like self, or just like getting it done?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? So like, the reason I was even able to get to that point is because I had so much pressure on myself through high school. Like, I was valedictorian. Like I took AP class. Like, but I feel like through that process, the whole point of me doing that was like to give myself those options. Like it was like it was never like for anything other than to be like, I don't know what I want, but I don't want to be limited in when I get to choose what I want that to be. Like I don't want there to be any boxes that I haven't checked that wouldn't allow me to do that. Right.
Hmm.
But there was a lot of pressure involved in that and a lot of anxiety, a lot of like really not feeling comfortable in my own skin in that sense. And so high school was like kind of tough for me in that way because and nobody from the outside, not parents, like nobody was giving me that pressure other than myself. And I don't know why. I like look back and go, I don't know why I needed that. I just knew that I needed that. It wasn't until about halfway through first year to maybe like the second year of college
Yeah.
when I actually realized that it didn't matter as much. And there was like a big shift for me in college where I was like, oh, like the grades don't matter. The fact that I'm like learning matters. And
Yeah.
so by being able to take that pressure off of like A means you're good, B means you're not as good. And it was just like, hey, I'm just here to like just graduate. But like but do it in a purposeful way because
Yeah.
at some point I'm going to be needing these skills. And so I focused more on developing the skills and cared less about the actual letter grade that I was getting. And what was interesting was I was finding that to get a B was like, a good amount of work or B plus or even an A minus, but to get an A was like twice as much work. And I'm like, what's the point here? I'm not benefiting from this,
Yeah.
right? And so I was able to kind of take this step back of like, what am I actually trying to get from this? And I shifted in my mind from being the high schooler who wanted to give myself as much opportunity to actually being the one in college taking advantage of that opportunity. And it took some of that pressure off. And so like being able to find the like reason as to why you're doing it and not just like the performance of it I think really allowed me to really actually learn more in that sense. Like in that same like not caring, it actually opened my brain up more to actually really understand things more.
Yeah. I love that. You know what's funny is like it's like a maturity level where I love what you said because I think there's probably a lot of individuals who have that anxiety or that pressure on themselves. And I love what you said. Like no one was putting you in that pressure. Like you were an achiever within your own mind. Like you had this pressure and anxiety to like want to get to the best, which that I love that about you. But I also think like to be able to have the maturity to make that call to learn for yourself versus to try to get a grade for something outside of your control, I think is a great reflection moment, at least for me and for anyone listening, of like once you make that transition, to me it sounds like you enjoyed the process more, you enjoyed learning more, you enjoyed the college experience, you enjoyed whatever you like had at that moment because you allowed yourself to enjoy it. Is that, was that
Yeah.
safe to say? Is that like,
Yeah, yeah. And what's funny is like it didn't even actually mean that I worked any less. It
yeah,
wasn't like a matter of oh, I was spending 40 hours and then it went down to 30 hours. No. I was doing the same amount of time. It
yeah,
just I think I got out of it more because I was spending my time in the right spot,
yeah,
right? And I think when I look at work life and I fall into that same trap sometimes of like you have your kind of head down thinking like, oh, I just need to get this report out. I need to do whatever. And then you lose sight of the fact that like my this isn't my this is my career. I need to think about my career more than just the job that I'm doing. So how do I kind of keep those two things in balance at the same time? Stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that balance in life, right? It's that moment where you should push yourself, but it's like, are you pushing yourself for the right reasons? I think is
Right.
what it comes down to for sure. And like to pivot to your work, man, you've worked on some amazing things that like I probably brag to people way more than you probably ever bragged to yourself. But it's like, dude, LAFC, Harry Potter, Mario World, you've worked on some fucking amazing things, and
Yeah.
billions of people attend those, and like you've seen behind the scenes. And so like how does it feel to like be part of some of those massive projects that you've been on?
You know, there is sort of an ego side to it, you know. It's like you
Sweet.
can
It's
I
awesome.
I drive on the 110 and I go to work and I see off the side and I see the soccer stadium and so there's some gratification in that. And that's part of why you get into construction, right?
Mm,
Is because there's a physical thing to it. It's like you
yeah.
make a decision, and that decision you can see happen in front of you, whether it's good or a bad decision, right? And so in that way, it really you learn a lot because you can actually see what the decision that you've made.
Mm,
But to be honest, those projects, as to the outside world, it's like, wow, I've always, you talk about like being in construction. It's like, oh, I want to do a roller coaster. Oh, I want to do a stadium. And you're like, okay, well, I've done both those things. What did I get from both those things? Honestly, I've had other projects that have been more interesting than that one, or more fulfilling than those ones. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to construction, like you only see the final product, like the last 10% of the project. Other
interesting.
than that, it's the exact same process. You're still putting foundations in the ground, you're still doing steel, you're still doing the same process. So in that way, it's not any different. I think what's cool about those projects is because there's more notoriety to them.
Sure.
Even internally at the company, there's, you know, they're exciting for other people, get excited about your project. And so in that way, for me, it's actually been very beneficial because people have always been interested in the projects that I'm doing. And so
Mm,
when people are interested and they are successful, then you
yeah.
can kind of ride the coattail of that. And so, but these projects are tough, man. I mean, they always have a very tight timeline. There's a lot of eyes on you. So if
Totally.
you say, hey, we got to make it in June 2025, well, shit, that's on a billboard out in front of the park saying it's June 2025, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you're not this isn't like your house that you're like, oh, I guess I can't move in for a month. It's like, no, no, no. Literally, like the entire public knows this. People are buying tickets to come see this thing that you're about to do. So there's this extra pressure to it, which, uh, it does one of two things for people. Like either people can handle it or people
Yeah.
thrive in it. And
Yeah.
it's funny because on all those projects, you see sort of this divide of people that like take on the challenge and like learn 5 years worth of stuff in 2 years, or you get people that are just like, this is too much and I can't handle it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was good for me to be on those projects when I was younger. I don't know if I would have survived those projects with kids, to be
Mm,
honest.
that's an interesting point. Yeah.
And what's the most interesting about that when I reflect back on those projects is I was working with people with kids and they were putting in the same hours that I was. And I'm like, I had no idea what they were going through. I had no idea that, this guy that was staying there till 7:30 at night with me to get something done had two kids at home and his wife was calling. I'm just like, why is she calling you? And I'm not thinking about that now. I go, my God, like what are you doing here? Why was I okay with him sitting right next to me? Like I had nothing to do. He had
Yeah.
like three kids at home. What are they doing? And so that was honestly one of the biggest moments for me when I had kids was like this world opened up that like other people are living that I had no idea that was the case. And so these projects became super taxing on people. And I was always like, oh, this person couldn't, he couldn't make it because it was too hard for him. But I'm like, man, like I didn't actually really think about why that was so tough for people. And I think about myself right now is like I wouldn't even want myself in that situation right now.
Yeah.
And so I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it in that way because I did learn a lot in those projects, and it did get me to where I am now, and I'm better for those things. But if you ask me would I want to do those again, probably not.
Yeah, and that's a great reflection. It's like you, dude, you're on these world renowned like people come all over the world to see these things. And there's two things that stood out, which I like took away from this is nothing to do with construction
Yeah,
or building something of that magnitude. It's one, 90% of the things that you've built, you don't see the final product. It's only the last 10% of the product. And so like you gotta enjoy the first 90%. You gotta enjoy the process. You
yeah,
gotta enjoy what's happening behind the scenes because all of it, you're gonna have to pour the foundation. You have to build you have to build the base. You have to build it really strong. You have to build it up to code. Whatever analogy you're gonna use for construction, 90% of it is like the real work, which is 10% is just putting on the last parts,
yeah. I mean, if
which is
you look at my phone, I have a million photos of steel beams going in for
steel
various different
beams.
projects, and they look exactly the same. Right now, I'd probably go back and I'd be like, I don't even know what project that was from, you
But I
know?
know what structure this like
Yeah.
support and how much weight. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, you're right. You have to enjoy that. Like the enjoyment comes of the actual construction of it, honestly, not as much the final product. Yeah, it's cool to like drive by and be able to say, "Oh yeah, I built that," and some days take my kids that.
yeah,
But that's not why you do it. If that's why you're doing it, the final product, then you're on the wrong side of construction. You shouldn't
yeah.
be in construction. You should be on the design side, or I don't know, in working at the park. It's like I never by the end of the project, honestly, like I didn't even want to be there. Like
Yeah,
at Universal, like I don't want to go to Universal. I've
yeah,
I've seen more than I need to see, and I've got no interest in going. I'll show my kids, but like you don't. The final product isn't the goal, you
yeah. I think
know.
that's it. That the final product isn't the goal. It's just the achievement of building the whole thing, which is 90, yeah, behind the scenes. And then the second thing is, which as a father as well, obviously I have almost a 6-year old and then I got two others, but it's the empathy for people because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah,
Right? It's like like especially parents. Like I remember back when I was like a younger sales leader, and I'd be like, "What the fuck? Like, why are they leaving early? They're on quotas." And it's like, holy shit! They had a 6-month old. They didn't sleep the night before.
right.
Oh man, and this could be whether it's kids or anything in life. You don't know what's happening, so be empathetic because yeah, things happen in life. Cool. All right, so a couple things, a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up here. We want to keep it under 30 minutes. Is three questions left. One is about construction again of like you've been on these projects. They've year-long projects. It takes a lot of twists and turns. They have long timelines. You make progress, you take a step back. It's about patience and persistence. So like any guidance when people are on these long journeys, these long projects of like how to continue to think about the goal at the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, like any guidance on that pieces of like, when you're in the thick of it, like what have you leaned on to help you get through those moments?
Oh man, I'm going through one of those moments right now, so maybe I should listen to my own advice if I give
Yeah,
good advice
here it
right
is.
now.
This is why you're on the podcast tonight, is because you're going through it right now. What do you think you should do, or what are the things that you've done in your past?
I think it's a combination of things. I think you have to have small, attainable goals along the way.
Okay, love
Um, Being able to have like those small wins and like, knowing that like, okay, I just need to like get through this thing and then get through this next one. Because it like in construction, man, like you show up in the morning and like your day is not set. There's a million things that are going on, especially in the position I'm at. Like I've got to be a counselor, I've got to be a boss to people, I've got to be their father figure. It's like I got to be all these people at the same time, and so it's trying to make sure that they all like making sure you check in with people,
it.
their team, like creating that strong team bond and making sure that all you guys are communicating in that way, I think is the thing that I probably focus on probably the most, is that everybody is understanding what's going on at the same time and that we're moving in the ship together. And I think that camaraderie like
Mm,
makes it easier to kind of withstand all of the shit that you deal with,
sure.
because at least you're like, hey, at least like the people around me have my back. And like then we can actually, if I make a bad decision, I know that somebody's going to be right there to help me through it, you
Mhm.
know? But
Yeah.
that's an environment that you got to like think about creating,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't just happen. It's like you got to think about the personalities that you're with. You got to think about, you know, the strengths and weaknesses of them and where they can fit in and help each other. And then analyze like, hey, do we have these gaps and do I need to bring something else in? And so you're constantly just like thinking about your team at all times and the health of your team.
Yeah.
Because when you go through, you know, when you go through those like high parts of the roller coaster and you're just working a lot of hours, if you don't have that bond, like you just fall apart, you
Yeah.
know. And so making sure that your team is feeling good together makes it a lot easier along the way. You know, it's just one less thing that you have to worry about if you know that you've got the team that is there for each other.
Totally. Whether it's construction, whether it's sales, whether it's friends, family, whatever. It's the communication, what I heard, and like the connection and being able to like have people's backs and have a safe space and be able to communicate clearly and be able to talk things through because yeah, shit happens in life. You got to be adaptable, which I loved. I appreciate you sharing that. So, man, we've been friends for over 30 years now, which is very uncommon. And there's a group of us, like we've
Hmm.
gone on golf trips with people that we've been friends with for over 25 years. You and I have been friends for close to 35 years. There's other people that you and I have spent a lot of time with that we are still connected with. So, what do you think is like kind of the underlying thing that helps keep our friendship and our group together as life continues to change?
I think what's really unique, and I talked with Lindsay, my wife, about this. The the bond that we created, and I don't know why it did the way it is. And you and I also have this like unique friendship in that like we've been through like two phases of friendships together.
We've probably been through like seven, but yeah.
But in the sense that like we grew up and we had our high school friends, and
Yep.
then we both went to college and had the same common friends in that sense.
True.
Because I think even like the closeness that I feel, you know, some people I'm closer with than others.
Yeah, totally.
And you know, you go through the experience of like, hey man, we're friends, but we're not like close friends. And so you're like, hey, if I see you, great. If I don't, whatever. I think the difference is like the it kind of goes back to that empathetic, the emotional connection that I think was really unique in some of the friendships groups that you and I especially kind of grew up together with, in that it wasn't weird to talk about our feelings,
That's
right?
true.
It wasn't weird for us to like be going through something and like talk it out with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that was what's really unique about our friendship. And again, this is what I was saying with that I talk about with my wife, is that we were so open with each other in a non-threatening, like not, we riffed on each other and stuff, but like when it actually mattered, the stuff that actually mattered, like you could talk about it and it didn't feel weird. And I
Yeah.
think that was very different of an experience for many males our age growing up. That it was just like you had to be guarded and you had to be tough or you had to be, stupid and do funny things or whatever. And then
Make
that
fun.
was like the basis of your friendship, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't, there's no foundation to that friendship. And for us, like, I mean, we've seen each other go through breakups and new relationships and tough times and
Bad
things happen
decision.
to us,
Yeah.
and
Totally.
but it was never like a, hey, just whatever, man up, get through it. It was like, okay, what's going on? Like, let me get on your level with you. And I think that was what's so unique. And I don't know where that came from. And I think you said it earlier, is like you become the person that you're like your
Surrounded with.
five
Yeah.
closest friends. And so I don't know who was the one that started that, or if we all kind of had it a little bit, and then it just kind of went off of each other. We kind of built off of each other in that way. But I think that was really unique, and I don't think we ever really realized it as we were going through that, of like how normal it felt for us to be that way with each other, but like how much that was different than what other people in our situation we're experiencing.
Yeah, and
And how lonely that must have felt for other people to go through.
I, dude, it's crazy to like reflect back because I think you're absolutely right. Where we were all just a phone call away and we would be willing to talk about whatever. Like, I don't think we were afraid to like talk about things that normal, like people wouldn't normally talk about or want to be shielded about. We were allowed to like kind of be ourselves too. Like, I feel like we were all able to also pick up different interests and like go do our own things, but then still be friends. And like I mentioned earlier, we went to different high schools, we played different sports, we had different friend groups, but we naturally all just kind of still connected really deep with each
Mhm.
other because I think it was more than just what our interests were. It was like we really cared about our life, you know what I mean? And like whether you're
Right.
interested in something different, it's just like you just connected with someone on a deeper level, which is actually I don't even have an answer for it. It's just unique. It was like
Right.
I'm very thankful for it, to be honest.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm
Well,
very
and you look like somebody like Brandon that like came into our life like later on, like that
totally,
felt like a natural thing because he was that way too, right?
totally,
So it was just like, and I even look at that in my own life these days of like just the friendships that I maintain, the friendships that I latch onto. It's sort of this like the same feeling of like being able to kind of be yourself in that way and not feel like, I'm putting on a performance at all. And I feel like that we've always kind of had that going growing up, and it was.
yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, Peter, last question for you before we jump off here. I always like to ask this as I end the podcast with one of the guests is for anyone earlier in their career, anyone going through a challenge or somebody that might just need some guidance that you've had in your life. So like just one quick thing, it could be a quote, it could be a lesson, it could be something that a teacher gave to you one day, but what is something that you would give in terms of advice for people out there going through a transition or trying to break into the job industry or something they're going through a tough time? All right, welcome back. Nothing like a little technical difficulty. Peter, I can hear you. You can hear me. All right. So, final question. I know it's late here for us, but I want to make sure I ask it. So, the question is advice to somebody, whether it's somebody trying to join the workforce, somebody making a career transition, maybe they're going through a tough time. I don't know. Some advice that you picked up along the way that you could share on the podcast here.
Yeah. I think y- when I think about somebody that's trying to, figure out what they want to do with their life, or, if their job that they're on, isn't the greatest or whatever. I always go back to this idea of like leaning into something that you enjoy,
Mm,
and but I think enjoyment, I think often gets misconstrued as like I'm having fun. Where I think the enjoyment that I'm talking about is probably actually more fulfillment. But you know, doing the thing that like you do for 9 hours and you look up and go, wait, what just happened? Like time just kind of went way faster than you could have thought. And just like exploring the curiosity in, like explore yourself in that way, and like be curious in yourself of like what like makes you tick, right?
yeah,
Like I ask people the question of like, hey, if you had all the money in the world, like what would you do at that point? If you didn't ever have to worry about money, what would you do? Okay, well, I'd probably like do woodworking. I don't know, then do something that is somewhat enjoyment in that, right? Like lean into those things that find, but that you find that passion within that can really like keep that drive going. Because if you're looking for something that's extrinsic, or extrinsic, that's like externally,
yep,
fulfilling, you're always going to sort of feel that way inside, that it doesn't quite get there. And so trying to lean into those things that you actually enjoy, and finding the uniqueness of what that enjoyment actually is. So not in the actual final product, but in the in between of that. Like, so for you, you love coaching people, teaching
I love these
people.
conversations, dude.
Yeah,
This is
yeah, like
really what I
like
love.
connecting with people, right? And
Yeah,
so what do? You do work that gets you exposed to that a lot, right? For me, like I really like solving problems, right? So I do my work. There's an endless array of problems to solve. There's an
Sometimes,
endless array
yeah,
of
sometimes it's too much, but you got to do it.
yeah of things to learn, you
Yeah.
know. And so that's where I find myself the best. That's where I find kind of that zen moment, is when I'm in the middle of something and it's like, man, I got to solve this problem, right? I sleep with it, I think about it, I turn it around, and then when I get that final solution, I'm like, man, like I really thought about that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean, is like, is not like, hey man, it'd be really cool to, you know, build roller coasters. It's like, no, I really love solving problems. So like finding that, like that
Mm,
unique thing that you really find passion in,
yeah.
and finding a work that can provide that for you. Because I think when you can allow those two things to meet together, um, then that's where you find people that are very successful, right? Like I think it actually, like in my own career, you know, I did architectural engineering, so I became a structural engineer. I was so bored. I was horrible. Like I actually got laid off. I was 3 years in, I got laid off because I wasn't performing well because I didn't want to perform well, right? And so the whole time I was going through it, I was like, I was coming in as late as possible and leaving as soon as I could, you know,
And
and I just
miserable for the miserable
and
for
I
the
and I was
hour.
miserable,
Yeah.
right? Immediately I got in construction and I'm like, I'm out in the field. I'm actually talking to people that are building things. I'm watching the thing get poured, get set into place. And it's like that unlocked something totally different for me that I was missing, right? And so it's like finding that thing that you find interesting within the thing that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And then leaning into that and using that as sort of the catalyst to figure out what you want to do with yourself.
I love that. I love that, man. I think reflecting back, it's like, man, we only have so much time. Like, I agree with you of like, if you can find work that's going to tap into that creative tissue and that the thing that makes you happy and the thing that gets you in that flow state where time just goes by quickly.
Yeah.
And you might have thought it would have been for you structural engineering, where it's like, fuck yeah, I'm solving these problems, but it was too narrow, it seems like, for you, and it just didn't allow you. And for me, there was a couple different roles and companies that I worked
Yeah.
for that just weren't, it didn't align. And then the quicker you can pivot and think about like, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna do good work, but this isn't for me, I'm going to pivot to something else, is probably the right thing. Like, just don't waste your time. Find that place in life where you can fit and do good work.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say too, and I know we're kind of at time here, but you know, I think we talked about earlier on this podcast or before we got on, where it's like, um, y- shoot, what was I going to say?
You got it. Come on, dude. You lost it. Are we 40 now or what? Jeez.
Yeah, um, shoot, what were you talking about? Never mind. Anyway,
It's
it's
there.
late.
But hey, guess what? When you think of it again, we can have you back on, Peter. It was a privilege. Loved having you on the Be Better Tribe podcast. Obviously, the 34 years of friendship has been amazing. I know it's going to be forever now because you're not going to get rid of me. But nonetheless, man, I'm super proud of you. I appreciate the guidance. And, you know, through the tough times that I've had in my life, you've always been there for me. So I appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining. And Be Better Tribe. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. We'll have many more just like it. Thanks so much, Peter.
Yeah, appreciate having me on.
Of course.
All right, bye.
All right, this is the real podcast, and this is how conversations work. Peter's writing down a note. I don't want him to lose train of thought. Peter, don't worry. We can delete this if needed, but I actually like the realness.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
All
Okay.
right.
Peter's
All right.
back on. Look at
So,
this is how life
so okay,
go for it.
so here's it. So I tell people this all the time, and you know, because I get a lot of, you know, people that I coach, and you know, a lot of times they're telling me that like, hey, I'm gonna move to Hawaii at some point. I've got a boyfriend that I want to go live with or whatever.
Sure.
And you know, part of me was like, you know, hey, I work for this company. This person's really good. I don't want that person to leave. But I came to this realization at some point that it's like your career is your career, and it took me like, you know, when I started as a structural engineer, I worked for like 3 years, and it was a great, you know, it was a great company. I liked the people I work with, whatever, and it it felt like I could be there for my whole life. And in my mind, I was kind of like, I'm going to be here my whole life. and they made it feel like I'm a family, and it felt like I was part of the family. Well, something happened, and we lost a couple jobs, and we didn't get them, and so they had to lay off a bunch of people, and then I was laid off. And at that point, I was like, oh my God, just as much as I choose to be here, they choose to keep me here. And so it kind of made this shift in my mind of like, I need to think about my career and not a place that I work at. And so when I have young people and it's like, hey, I want to go live, I go live with your boyfriend. Like your career, your life is your life.
Yeah.
Like don't let work tell you what you should be doing. If they send you to Minnesota because you need to be a company person, like does that fit within your life? Is that worth you flying out through, Monday through Thursday and coming home to your family and getting divorced at the end of it? Like I've seen that happen to so many different people, and it's like, especially in construction, like that is such a commonplace that it's like, oh, you get shipped off, and your whole family has to go with you to whoever, to wherever, and you go like, and so I look at what that does to people, and I'm like, people kind of lose sight of the fact that like you define your career. Like you don't have to work at the place that you're at. If you don't enjoy it, don't stay there, you
Oh,
know? And you're often scared of going, but like you should be scared of staying sometimes,
oh,
you
dude.
know?
Yeah.
And and so like Lindsay was working at Deloitte and she was miserable. She was
Yeah.
making way more money when she was working as a consultant. But I'm like, you need to quit. And she's like, but I don't have a job. I go, I don't care. Like
You'll
we
find.
save up money for this point, for
Yeah.
you to be able to make the decision and say, this doesn't work for me in my life. I need to do something different. And unless you can like fully jump into that 100%, you're never going to find that next thing. You're going to be halfway in, halfway out. And so
Mm.
it, you have to make some of those decisions. And what's interesting is the first time I got laid off, my next company that I worked at, I was there for 8 years, and I got to a point where I'm like, I don't think I can be here anymore. And so I made the decision to leave. And oh my God, that felt so good to like, to, for me to be able to make that decision for
Yep.
what was best in my life. And in reflection, 4 years later, it was the best decision I ever made. But it took me going through that first experience and like realizing that like, this is my career. I decide how I want it to go and not my company because that's where I'm at and it looks like I want to be successful here. And so it's like that took a while for me to realize. And now I look at everybody that works there like, if you're not doing well here, I honestly don't look at it as like this person's not good at their job. I'm like, I just don't think this person wants to be here.
It's not the
Like
right fit.
and let me actually get rid of you just for your own sake. Like let me push you off into the direction that you should be going in because you clearly don't want to be here, and sometimes it's hard for you to make that decision on your own, and it was hard. I didn't make the first decision. I
Yep.
felt so good to make the second one.
I, I I'm really happy the technical difficulties because I think this actually was like the really root of a lot of the conversation. It's like you got to take control of your life and have the courage to make those tough decisions and walk away. And like I think it's twofold. It's like I think until you write your own checks, like until you write your own check, do really good work.
Yeah.
But also understand you can go get a check somewhere else too. Like you have the freedom to make that choice to go elsewhere, which you could absolutely do if you have that courage. And so if you're miserable, like find a way out, like find a way somewhere different, like do something. And I think that's really valuable feedback. And I think it's really valuable guidance for somebody in that tough situation where they are in a career transition or they're trying to get into the workforce, whatever the case may be. It's like you always have a choice. Like you always have a choice, and you should be making choices that are going to make you happy and not necessarily that's only for the company. Because if you make decisions just for the company, like it's probably not going to be the life that you actually want to build.
Yeah, and I think that can also get misconstrued as like, hey, I'm just gonna like go to a new company every year, because that's also not the right thing to do either, right?
No,
It's like
no.
you don't want to burn bridges. You don't want to like, you should care about the people you work with. You want to like, preserve your name wherever you go. You want people to think back and like, oh my God, that guy left and screwed us all over. It's like, man, that guy left. I'm really sad that guy left because it was awesome working with that person, you know?
Totally.
And, you know, if you're just kind of bouncing around and you don't really stick anywhere, then you don't really know what it means when you actually find the place you want to stick and what that actually looks like. You kind of need to like have that shitty boss to know what a shitty boss is, to know not to be that shitty boss, just as much as you need a good boss to see what it means to be a good boss, right? Like you can learn from both of those situations, but you have to kind of ride it through to a certain point and give it, you know, be able to walk away and go, I gave it everything that I could. You know, I
Uh,
gave it every chance that I could.
there's a book called The Dip that my team actually just read, and it talks exactly about this of like, don't make decisions. If you're trying to go for a goal, don't make a decision when you're in the dip and it's a really hard place to be.
Right.
Make the decision, try to make the decision. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but try to make the decision when you're actually performing. You're in a good place. You've been there for enough time to build your brand and reputation, because then you're more level set. You're going to make
Yeah.
the right decision and you're not making it out of emotions.
Right.
So I think that's like clear too, of like, you want to make sure that you are not making drastic decisions, because your reputation will be bad, and that's actually more detrimental for your career for sure.
Well, and when I made the decision to leave, you know, I made that decision on my own. You
Yeah.
know, and every time you make that decision and you tell people, somebody comes, hey, you know, what if we did this and what if we did that? And I was like, I've already made my decision.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I
like
mean, it's, you
for
made
me
it.
to get to this point, there was a lot of different things that happened along the way that you guys probably could have done something different to maybe change my mind.
Yeah.
But now that I've actually like gone over that edge, now you're doing all this stuff. I've already made my decision in that sense.
And
You
that's
know?
okay. And that happens, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, hey, we could have made changes in the past, but the past is the past. I made my call. I'm going to move on. And that's what
Yeah.
it is. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right, buddy. Well, you and I could probably talk all night. I'm sure we'll get back on the phone.
Are you gonna cut that in and cut it out, or is it just gonna go raw all the way through?
I will spice it together. I'll piece together. But you know what? I like it where it's just natural, man. Who
Yeah.
knows what it'll be? But I'll put it all together. But thanks so much again, Peter. Appreciate everything you do for me. Love you, man. And we'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on.